Hi everyone, my name is Irma. I'm at home today, sitting in my living recording room in Chicago, Illinois. And it is October 25th, 2020, our major year of transformation and change and challenge. And given the season, and also given a lot of the energy that I have personally been experiencing, I decided that I wanted to talk today about ghosts and the energy around death and transition and transformation. These are tough subjects. For most of us, for many of us, because we're not really trained ever in our life to learn about this natural phenomenon that we are all meant to experience. Rather, what seems to be the case is that we are taught to fear death, and we are taught to maybe consider that transition is always meant to be difficult, and that goodbyes are painful. And some of that energy is created and generated around this notion of attachment, which is essentially an illusion. The idea that we could have impermanence to any one thing is an illusion in and of itself. Whether it be an energy, a person, an object, and even our own physical 3D manifestation of us, of each one of us, which is through our body. The idea that we fear our own death is based on an attachment that we have to our bodies. So this is what I wanted to talk about a little bit more. There's so many ways I can jump into this conversation because this energy has been so alive in me recently. But I'll start, as I kind of usually do, with what I have been noticing personally. In the last couple of months, maybe part of July, all of August, and all of September, and even through the first couple of weeks of October, I have felt in so many ways disconnected from my own body. And this appeared for me in a couple of different ways. I feel as if energetically my spirit went off to perform some work in other realms, in other dimensions, to help support all of the changes that are happening on our planet right now. And when that happened, my body was left to essentially function on its own. And because of that, because I wasn't connected in spirit with my body experienced a few different forms of ailments and new issues that I have never experienced in my life before. One of them including the skin around my body itself, like an infection in my skin, which literally had me feeling uncomfortable in my own skin. And I know that my spirit was off doing other kinds of work, and because my body was trying to heal and in discomfort in this way, my histamines, which are a point of sensation in my body, were extremely flared and essentially had me like going down this 3D rabbit hole where every microscopic, minuscule form of 3D life, like a dust particle, had me completely on edge, had my body completely on edge. And so while my body was spiraling down in the 3D realm, my spirit, I know, was off kind of performing some magic in other realms. So while this was all going on, I had actually just kind of like stayed really quiet and kind of like went under the radar and was tending to myself as much as I could with the energy that I did have. And I had these moments of time where I felt as if my body itself was even dissolving, and where I felt as if perhaps there were other energies that had come into my body, and thus the reason for discomfort and not feeling like myself under my own skin. This is a phenomenon that is known as walk-ins. A walk-in situation is when one leaves their body and then another energy or entity comes into the body and occupies it. And it is, I wouldn't say it's completely common, but in the spiritual energetic world, it is a bit common that that happens. And the experience of what goes on with that just depends on so many things, on whether or not there is an agreement for this other entity to come into the body, whether there's a lesson for the body to learn, a healing for the body to have, or an experience for the being itself through that body, a contribution that that being needs to make through a body. And so there's so many different kinds of purposes and reasons why this happens. And it happens a lot more than we ever know. I have seen it happen around me with relations that I've had. And as I'm explaining, I feel as if it has also happened within me personally as well. I feel like the spirit that I have known is kind of coming back into my body. However, the way that I'm coming into my body now is very different than how I was before. And in a sense, that is a death. It is a living death that I have experienced within my own self. There are parts of me that have died that will never come back in the way that they existed before. During these months, I had these realizations and so much clarity around the disillusion of ego, and ego being what was holding together parts of me that no longer were meant to be a part of my experience. And as I started to recognize that and let that go is when this transformation started to become more real. And these additional experiences that were happening, almost as if I was a ghost in a living body. And so this might sound really strange and new to hear about a living death, but every time that we experience a change in our life or in our world, there is a death that is occurring. In the planet itself, nature always reminds us that there is a cycle of life. It is not one entire continuation that remains static. We are continuously evolving and changing. We're in the season of fall now, and we're witnessing with our own eyes the leaves that are drying and falling from the trees. And the death of that life that we were able to enjoy over the summer and watch grow over the springtime is now beginning, the death of that is beginning to be very clear. The days are becoming darker, depending on where you live, they might also become colder. And the seasons and the change in our life cycle are the constant reminder that we live in a cyclical experience and that we are constantly undergoing change. When we are conscious to it, we could have the understanding and the awareness of the energy that we are experiencing. And I had the awareness that there was something new going on with me, and I had the clarity that I wasn't as close to my body as I had wanted to be, or that I knew is what I needed in order to heal. And that information is kind of what made it manageable for me to be able to move through this transformation period. One of the other important things that I want to talk about is this notion of having another energy, either through an entity or another form, attaching to your body, is to recognize whether you and your spirit or your body are in agreement with that or not. And knowing when that energy is there, either for malevolent or benevolent reasons, and tapping into that purpose so that then you have a choice on how to act and how to go about healing in whatever way that is true for you. And the healing could mean that you need to reclaim your space and perhaps banish the energy out from you if it is parasitic, if it is invasive, if it is ill-wishing, if it is controlling, and especially if it is there without your permission. You can take some steps or find some help in order to clear the energy away from your space. And if the energy is there for other purposes that you are in agreement with, then you can ask for support in other ways in terms of soothing and guidance and having a higher perspective. And in order to be able to understand and incorporate the lessons, perhaps clearing karma might be a big reason why an energy situation like this might occur as well. And the only way that you could really discern this discomfort that is going through your body is if first you have established a relationship with your own body and you can recognize the difference between what feels appropriate and necessary compared to what is inappropriate and invasive. They're both uncomfortable and they both might feel really awkward and you might be confused throughout all of it. But the more you can establish your relationship with your body and with your own spirit, the clearer you will be with the purpose and the bigger perspective around what it is that is going on. No matter how much you might get drawn into the 3D downward spiral of worrying about the illusion and what is going on in this physical world alone. So that is an example of like ghosts in ghost experiences in a living form. And then of course there's the experience when our bodies no longer function and our physical body dies. Our physical body is impermanent. We are all here to live an experience for a certain amount of time, and then we will leave these bodies. But our eternal being will continue, and our eternal being has had so much experience already in multiple bodies and in multiple lives, sometimes not even in bodies. I recently was just supporting a fundraiser, and I had the fortune of doing like 8 back-to-back clairvoyant readings. And in my readings, I often offer up a past life reading of a time when that individual, that eternal being, lived as an enlightened one, as an enlightened being. And I was able to read the energy and say hello to some amazing souls. I said hello, if I can remember off the top of my head, I said hello to a couple of witches, very, very different type in their craft. One of them performed more like healing and nurturing types of craft. And the other was more of a force of nature who essentially like commanded her space and influenced the environment around her. And then there was a Maya priestess who I said hello to as well, who had this amazing matriarchal energy about her and an ability to heal her community through her own presence. I said hello to an inventor, someone who lived at the beginning of time and was one of the first explorers who would go out and essentially discover new lands and brought new forms of building community, of building warmth and just creating materials. He was one of the very, very first inventors, so to speak, when man was first created here. And I said hello also, there was a few more, but I said hello also to a being who lived as a volcano. A volcanic being. And that being had the experience of essentially expressing energy through eruptions and had the potential to erupt fiercely and destroy everything around him. However, in that lifetime, he chose instead to express his power through smaller eruptions that happened more regularly and continually versus one explosive and destructive one. And what he ended up doing, I'll get to a point to why I'm bringing this up. What he ended up doing is through his smaller eruptions around time, he continued to create Earth. Each time that he erupted and expressed himself in a way that served him and served the community around him, his matter, the lava, the molten heat would settle and create more Earth. So it basically created more land where there was no land. And I saw him as morsels of dust or ash floating through the air is how I saw him in present time. And it brought everything right back to me in terms of how I had been feeling that my own body itself has been dissolving in certain ways, and how also a being like him who expresses through ash in the air is everywhere, constantly, all the time. And while that may not be the definition of a ghost that you're used to, it is a being, an example of a being that is around us all the time that we may not recognize because they are not in human form. Now, a ghost typically seems to be a being who has taken the form of a body and has left the body and has, for whatever reason, continued in the 3D realm as a visceral version of that body that they left. So that means that they are not in physical 3D form. However, because everything is energy and not everything is a physical form, many of us may still encounter ghosts. We may feel them. We may smell them. Other senses might come to life when there are beings in our present. And this is another example of when you are the most connected with your spirit, your own energy, and your own body, you will have the capability and ability to recognize when there's energy near you, on you, around you that is not yours. Now think about that for a second. And I don't want you to think about it. I want you to feel into that. So let the mind just kind of relax if it hasn't already, because we're not talking about logic or rationale or things that science can explain. We are talking about the mystical world, the metaphysical world. We're talking about the unseen realms. And so the unseen realms can be most understood anywhere but the mind. They're most appreciated through the senses, and they're most appreciated through emotions and through your energy centers. So feel into that, sense into that notion of the more connected you are and the more aware and present you are with your body and your spirit, not only the more you get to know about you, but also the more you get to recognize when other presence is near you. Now, we could go down this whole other rabbit hole discussion about, is there an other? Because we really are all connected, and anything that we experience or see around us is also just a mirror and a reflection of ourselves. And as I explained, those experiences could be experiences that are ones from which to learn, and or they could be outdated and may just be taking up space. And if that's the case, they can be cleared so that the new lessons can come through the energy that is useful. This is a lot of information, and it is my way of connecting the experiences that I've personally had with the energy that I'm feeling around me, because I may not be the only one feeling this. Many of you may be experiencing this, but really don't have a clue or a place to start in terms of making sense of it. This is my life work right now, and I offer this video as a bit of maybe a bit of a teaser or enticer to create more curiosity for you into knowing more about your own self. This is not about you like understanding me or my theory, not even theories, or my knowing or my work, even though I am here as a guide and I have offerings available as a guide as you move through transformational shifts. But this is an invitation for you to become curious about your own self, and an invitation for you to maybe connect with what are your beliefs around your existence here, your permanence or impermanence, your relationship to or with death, how you handle transitions and transformation. And where are you in the scale of recognizing yourself in relation to other energies that might come into your world? A lot of questions, right? I see myself even differently. I look a little bit tired today. I hadn't done a video, even though it's been a few days where I've started to feel kind of back into my skin and feeling my vibrancy again. And I kept on thinking, I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to wait until one day where I could feel really pretty and get dressed up and then record my video. And like I said, a bunch of ego has dissolved. And today just felt like a time to preach, a time to share my voice. And so there it is. My name is Irma. Thank you for listening. I am so here for you. I am. This year has been really hard on everyone, and it's not over. We have much more transformation to experience as individuals, but then also as a collective. And as I always know, I kind of have the experience before the majority of society does. And I know that that is because I'm meant to come out on the other side and to be prepared and ready so that I could then be a neutral observer and a guide to say to everyone else, it's gonna be okay. You can manage through this. It might be hard, it might be difficult, it might feel uncomfortable on your body or your emotions or the world that you've created in your own mind, but it's gonna be okay if you allow yourself to notice. I'm not going to say to surrender because that's not always the answer. Sometimes you have to reclaim your space, and sometimes it's necessary for you to stand in your own power. And then there's other times there are to surrender. And again, this is all about discernment. When you're able to discern, your higher self, your higher guides will come in and show you the way through the transformation. It's not always just one remedy. If you'd like to know more about me, my Linktree is chakraTUDE, and my website is juntas with an X, XUNTAS, chicago.com. For now, ciao loves. Happy everything there is about October and Halloween and the spooky season. Because it's gonna get spookier. So try to have some amusement and some fun with it. Love you. Bye.